Nora sat quietly at the end of the long dinner table, watching her family laugh and pass around food. The smell of roasted turkey filled the air, mixed with the sound of clinking glasses and cheerful voices. It was Thanksgiving at the James family home, warm, bright, and full of life. But not for her. She hadn't been home in 2 years. Tonight, she had gathered the courage to come back, hoping to make peace, to maybe feel like part of the family again. Everyone was talking, her mother smiling proudly at her sister Tina, her brother Ethan joking with their cousins. For a moment, Nora thought maybe things had changed. Then she reached for a bowl of mashed potatoes. Her mother's sharp voice cut through the noise. "That's for family, Nora." The laughter stopped. The whole table fell silent. No one looked at her, not even Ethan. Tina gave a small, nervous laugh, trying to lighten the moment. Nora froze, her hand trembling slightly. She forced a weak smile and whispered, "I am family." Her mother's reply was cold and heavy. "You stopped being family when you chose failure over medicine." The words hit harder than she expected. Nora felt her chest tighten. She swallowed the lump in her throat, blinked fast to hold back tears, then slowly pushed her chair back. The sound of it scraping the floor felt louder than ever. No one said a word as she stood up and walked out the front door. Outside, the air was freezing. The world felt quiet and empty. Her breath came out in small white clouds as she walked down the steps, her heart aching. She had dreamed of a warm reunion. Instead, she left hungry and humiliated. She stopped near the edge of the street and let the tears fall. The night sky above her was full of stars, but she felt small and unseen beneath them. Then headlights appeared. A car slowed down and stopped beside her. The door opened and she saw Mr. Malik, her neighbor from down the street. He stepped out, holding 2 covered dishes. His kind eyes softened when he saw her face. He asked gently, "They didn't feed you, did they?" Nora shook her head, unable to speak. He gave a small smile and lifted the dishes. "Then come on," he said quietly. "I made too much again." For the first time that night, she felt seen, and she wondered, who is this man, and why does he care so much? Flashback. Nora was 23, one of the best students in her medical class. Everyone said she was going to be a great doctor one day. Her father used to call her my little healer, proud of how hard she worked. But everything changed when her father fell seriously sick. The doctors said he needed constant care. Nora waited for her mother and siblings to help, but they were always too busy. Her mother said, "We can't stop our lives for him." And her brother Ethan stayed focused on his new job. Nora couldn't bear to see her father suffer alone. So, she made the hardest choice of her life. She left medical school to take care of him. For months, she cooked for him, gave him his medicine, and sat by his bed, reading stories to keep his spirits up. He often told her, "You have a heart that was meant to heal, even without a hospital." Those words stayed with her. But when he passed away, everything fell apart. Her mother was angry, saying Nora had thrown away her future. Tina, her sister, said it was her own fault. The house that once felt warm became cold and full of blame. Nora moved out soon after, carrying only a few clothes, her father's photo, and her medical books that now felt like memories of a life she had lost. She found a small apartment nearby, and began teaching part-time at a local school. It wasn't much, but it paid her bills. Life was simple and quiet, sometimes too quiet. Her next-door neighbor, Mr. Malik, often saw her coming home late with tired eyes. He was a single father raising his 7-year-old daughter, Lena. He ran a small catering business from home, cooking meals for local events. Sometimes, the smell of fresh jollof rice or baked bread would fill the air in their hallway. At first, Nora and Malik only exchanged polite greetings. But one evening, he knocked on her door holding a small lunchbox. "I made too much," he said, smiling shyly. Inside was warm rice and spicy stew. That meal tasted better than anything she had eaten in weeks. From then on, their friendship grew slowly, naturally. Lena would often come to Nora's door after school, holding her books. "Miss Nora, can you help me with my homework?" she'd ask. Nora would laugh softly and invite her in. Malik would sometimes join them, listening as they studied or sharing stories about his late wife. They never talked about their pain directly, but they both understood what it felt like to lose something, and to keep moving anyway. Their evenings were quiet but comforting. Nora started to smile more. Then one day, Nora got a call from her mother. It was short and cold. "We're having Thanksgiving dinner this year. You can come if you want." It was the first time she'd been invited home since her father's funeral. Nora's heart filled with hope. Maybe this was her chance to fix things, to be part of the family again. She spent hours choosing what to wear, and even baked a pie. But that night, everything went wrong. Her mother's cruel words at the dinner table left her broken and humiliated. When she came home, she sat alone in her small apartment, her pie still untouched. Then came a soft knock on the door. When she opened it, Mr. Malik stood there holding 2 covered dishes. His eyes were kind but sad, as if he already knew what had happened. He handed her the food and said quietly, "My mother always said, if someone forgets your plate, you make your own table." Nora looked down at the dishes, feeling tears fill her eyes again, but this time they weren't from pain. They were from the warmth of being seen, of being cared for. She smiled, just a small, quiet smile, but it was the first real one she'd managed all day. The next morning, Nora woke up to the sound of her phone buzzing nonstop. At first, she thought it was just school messages or spam. But when she opened it, her heart dropped. A photo from the Thanksgiving dinner had gone viral on social media. Her sister Tina had posted it. Everyone was smiling around the big table, plates full of food, the house glowing with light. But there was one thing missing: Nora. Tina had cropped her out completely. The caption read, "So grateful for my whole family this year, red heart." Nora stared at the picture for a long time, her chest tight. It looked perfect, like a happy family celebrating love and togetherness. But she remembered the truth behind that image. Her empty chair, her mother's cold words, and how she had walked out hungry and hurt. Soon, the comments started pouring in. "Beautiful family. You all look amazing. So much love in one photo." Then a few old classmates tagged her, asking quietly, "Weren't you there, Nora?" At work, her co-workers whispered when she walked by. Some smiled politely, pretending not to know. Others looked at her with pity. Later that day, Malik saw the post too. He came by her apartment, his face tense. "They really cut you out like that?" he asked, his voice full of disbelief. Nora tried to smile. "It doesn't matter," she said softly. "They never really saw me anyway." He frowned. "You should say something, Nora. People need to know the truth." She shook her head. "They won't care. To them, I'm already gone." Malik didn't argue. He just nodded slowly and said, "Then come with me this weekend. I'm catering a charity dinner. It's for people who don't have families to celebrate with." That weekend, Nora joined him at the community center. The hall was simple but filled with warmth, tables covered with colorful cloths, the smell of rice, stew, and roasted chicken filling the air. Malik and his small team were serving food to people who had nowhere else to go. At first, Nora just stood by, unsure. But then a little boy smiled at her and said, "Can I have more potatoes, please?" She laughed and gave him an extra scoop. Soon, she was moving from table to table, handing out plates, pouring drinks, and chatting with people. There was laughter, music, and gratitude everywhere. Nora's heart felt light for the first time in a long while. These strangers, people who had nothing, looked at her with more kindness than her own family ever did. Someone at the event took a short video of her helping the guests and posted it online. In the video, Nora was smiling as she served food, laughing softly with an old woman who said, "You have such a gentle heart." By the next day, that video began to spread. The caption read, "This teacher spends Thanksgiving weekend feeding those with no family." Thousands of people shared it, calling her an inspiration. Comments poured in, people thanking her, saying she reminded them that kindness still existed. When Nora saw it, she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She hadn't done it for attention. She just wanted to feel useful, to feel something. But the biggest shock came when she realized her family had seen the video too. Tina sent her a message, short and awkward. "You're all over social media." Mom saw it. Nora put down her phone and looked out the window. The sky was glowing with the soft light of evening. Somewhere out there, people were finally seeing her. Not for what she lost, but for who she truly was. And for the first time, she didn't feel invisible. At the James home, Mrs. James paced the living room, her face red with anger. She threw her phone down on the couch and said sharply, "She's embarrassing us online now? Pretending to be some kind of saint." Ethan, sitting quietly on the edge of the sofa, looked up from his phone. "Maybe she's just trying to be happy, Mom," he said softly. Mrs. James turned to him, her voice rising. Happy? She's trying to make us look heartless. People are calling her an angel. And now everyone thinks we're the villains in her story. Tina stayed silent, scrolling through her own feed. The video of Nora at the charity dinner was everywhere. The comments praised her kindness, her gentle smile, and how she helped people who had no family. But in the James house, the air was thick with bitterness. Meanwhile, Nora sat in her small apartment, her phone buzzing nonstop. Reporters wanted interviews. Strangers sent her long messages thanking her for showing compassion. Some even said she had inspired them to volunteer at local shelters. Malik's phone was also ringing off the hook. His catering business was booming. Orders had tripled overnight. People wanted to support the kind chef who worked with the teacher from the viral video. But Nora didn't enjoy the attention. She turned her phone face down, avoiding the calls and messages. Malik noticed her silence one afternoon when he came by with dinner. "Why are you hiding from all this?" he asked gently. "People love what you did." Nora sighed and stared at her hands. "Because my own mother thinks I'm a mistake," she said quietly. "How can strangers see more good in me than she ever did?" Malik looked at her kindly. "Sometimes blood blinds us," he said softly. "Love doesn't." His words stayed with her for days. Slowly, she started to smile again, helping Malik and Lena with their daily work. For a while, things seemed peaceful. But peace didn't last long. One cold evening, there was a loud knock on Nora's door. When she opened it, her mother stood there, her eyes sharp and angry. Mrs. James didn't wait for an invitation. She stepped inside and said, "You've made this family a joke. Everyone's talking about that video, saying we threw you out, saying we're cruel." Nora took a deep breath. "Mom, I didn't post anything. I was just helping." "Helping?" her mother interrupted. "Helping strangers while making your own mother look like a monster?" Nora's hands trembled. "I didn't make you look like anything. You did that yourself." Mrs. James's voice shook with rage. "Don't talk to me like that, young lady. After all I've done for you." Nora couldn't hold it in anymore. "You forgot my plate because you never saw me as enough," she shouted, her voice breaking. "You never cared what I gave up. I lost everything for this family, and you still made me feel worthless." Her mother's hand flew before Nora could react. Slap. The sound echoed in the small apartment. Nora froze, her cheeks stinging, tears flooding her eyes. But when she looked at her mother, she saw something unexpected. Her mother's face was trembling, her eyes filling with tears. "I lost your father because I couldn't save him," Mrs. James whispered, her voice cracking. "And you remind me of that every day." The anger in Nora's chest softened into confusion and sadness. For the first time, she saw the pain behind her mother's cruelty, the grief she had hidden under pride and control. Mrs. James covered her face with her hands, sobbing. "Every time I looked at you, I saw how much he loved you, how much I couldn't be like you. You were always the strong one, Nora. I just didn't know how to love you without feeling like a failure." Nora's tears fell silently. She wanted to hate her mother for all the hurt, but now she could see the brokenness inside her. They stood there in silence for a long time, mother and daughter, both carrying years of pain. Nora wanted to reach out, to hold her, but her body wouldn't move. The wounds were too deep. Mrs. James wiped her eyes and stepped back. "I shouldn't have come," she whispered. "But I had to see you." As she turned to leave, Nora said softly, "I never wanted to make you look bad, Mom. I just wanted to belong." Her mother paused at the door, her shoulders shaking. Without turning around, she said quietly, "Maybe I forgot how to make room for you." Then she left. Nora stood there, the room silent again. The anger had faded, replaced by a deep ache, but also a small flicker of understanding. For the first time, she realized her mother's cruelty came from pain, not hate. Forgiveness wouldn't come easily, but for the first time it felt possible. "Mom didn't want you at Thanksgiving," Ethan said quietly, his eyes full of guilt. Nora froze, her heart heavy. "What do you mean?" she asked. Ethan sighed and looked down at his hands. "I begged her to invite you. She said it would only bring trouble, that you'd ruin the mood. But I thought if you came, maybe she'd soften. Maybe she'd finally see how much she's hurt you." Nora stared at him, trying to process his words. "So she didn't want me there at all?" He nodded slowly. "I thought I was helping, but I only made things worse. I should have stood up for you that night." I should have said something. For a moment, Nora couldn't speak. She wanted to be angry, but instead, she saw how broken Ethan looked. He was carrying guilt too. The kind that eats away at you silently. It's not your fault, she said softly. We were all just trying to survive Mom's pain in our own ways. Ethan looked up, his eyes watery. You always took the hits for all of us. I'm sorry, Nora. She smiled sadly. Then maybe it's time we both stop apologizing for being who we are. Later that week, Malik called Nora early in the morning. You need to come with me tonight, he said, excitement in his voice. It's a surprise. When evening came, Nora found herself standing in a big city hall filled with people dressed in formal clothes. Cameras flashed, lights glowed, and a banner on stage read, Community Heroes Award Night. Malik looked nervous but happy. They're giving me an award, he whispered, for the charity dinner. Nora smiled proudly. You deserve it. When Malik's name was called, the crowd clapped loudly. He walked to the stage, accepted his award, and then turned to the microphone. But instead of talking about himself, he said, I didn't do this alone. There's someone who stood beside me, someone whose heart is bigger than any kitchen I've ever worked in. The audience went quiet as he continued, his voice calm and sincere. Kindness doesn't need applause, he said. Sometimes it just needs a place to sit and eat. He looked straight at Nora in the crowd, smiling gently. People began to record, and within hours, the video spread across social media. Everyone was talking about the man who gave his award to the teacher, who helped the homeless. Nora's name trended again, this time filled with love and admiration. When Mrs. James saw the video, she watched it over and over. Malik's words echoed in her mind. Kindness doesn't need applause. Something inside her broke. She realized how cruel she had been. How many times she had pushed her daughter away when all Nora wanted was love. A few days later, Nora was at school, grading papers in her classroom during lunch break, when the door opened quietly. She looked up, and froze. It was her mother. Mrs. James stood there, holding a warm food container. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying. I made your favorite, she said softly. Jollof rice. Thought you might be hungry. Nora blinked, speechless. She hadn't tasted her mother's cooking in years. Mrs. James walked slowly to the desk and placed the container in front of her. I can't change the past, she whispered, her voice shaking. But maybe I can make your plate first next time. For a few seconds, neither of them spoke. Then tears filled Nora's eyes. She stood up, and her mother reached out, her own hands trembling. They hugged, a real tight, shaking hug filled with all the words they hadn't said for years. Nora cried into her mother's shoulder, and her mother whispered, I'm sorry. I was just so afraid of losing everyone after your father died. I didn't realize I was losing you too. Nora held her tighter. You never really lost me, Mom. I was just waiting for you to see me. For the first time in years, the distance between them melted away. In that small classroom, with the smell of jollof rice filling the air, mother and daughter finally began to heal. It wasn't perfect. It didn't erase the pain. But it was a beginning, one full of hope, forgiveness, and a love that was finally ready to grow again. Nora's story becomes famous online. People share her video and call her the teacher with the kind heart. News channels talk about her, and she receives many messages from strangers who say her story gave them hope. Soon, she's invited to speak at a community event about forgiveness and strength. Standing on stage, she feels nervous at first, but when she looks at the crowd, she sees faces full of kindness. She shares her story honestly, saying, sometimes the people who hurt us are the ones we still love, but peace comes when we choose to stop carrying the pain. After the event, people thank her with hugs and tears. For the first time, Nora feels seen for who she truly is, not as the forgotten daughter, but as a woman who learned to heal. Malik's catering business grows quickly. He gets new contracts and community awards. Nora becomes a big part of his small family, helping him with events and tutoring his little daughter, Lena, after school. Their home feels warm, filled with laughter, music, and shared meals. Nora still visits her family sometimes, but now she knows her worth. She doesn't allow anyone to treat her as invisible anymore. She sets clear boundaries, keeping her peace above everything. Ethan begins therapy to deal with his guilt and finally tells Nora he's proud of her. Tina sends a long apology message, admitting she was jealous and wrong for posting that photo. Even Mrs. James tries harder. She calls Nora every Sunday, sometimes just to ask if she has eaten. The James family starts to heal slowly, one meal, one honest talk at a time. One evening, as the sun sets, Nora and Malik sit on the balcony with cups of tea. The city lights twinkle below them. Nora says softly, "For years I thought love only came from family. But now I see, love can come from anyone who feeds your soul." Malik smiles and takes her hand. "Then let's make sure we never go hungry again." She laughs, a light, peaceful sound. This time her plate isn't empty. It's full of food, love, and everything she once thought she'd lost. Next Thanksgiving. A long table again, but this time, it's in Malik's warm, cozy home. The table shines with golden light, filled with food and laughter. Nora sits beside Malik and little Lena, who is giggling as she helps pour juice. Across the table sit Mrs. James, Ethan, and Tina, the whole family together again. There's no anger, no cold silence, only peace. Mrs. James gently passes Nora a plate, filled with food. Her eyes are soft as she says, "You deserve this, my daughter." Nora smiles, her eyes wet with tears. She looks around the table, at Malik, Lena, her family, and says quietly, "This time I really feel full." Lena then places a small name card beside Nora's plate. It reads, "Family,